Okay, so this lesson is 2-5, solving compound inequalities. So we first start out with learning how to write them. So the two main things we are going to have in these are the words and the word or. So if you want somewhere on your paper, you might make a note that the word and I'll probably just say it because it's hard to write with my finger on here. So the word and is when you will have one compound inequality. So by the word and, you'll have one compound inequality, and that is right here, the word right here, compound inequality. Okay, then the word or, you will have two separate inequalities. Okay, two separate inequalities. Okay, so once you get that wrote down, you can pause it, back it up if you need to. Now we'll talk about this. So the first part, we're going to write each sentence as an inequality and then graph that inequality. So A says a number x is greater than -8 and less than or equal to 4. So right off the bat, we see the word and. So when we're setting it up, we'll first start out as separately, but then that means we're going to have to go back and combine it into one inequality. So if we break this apart, a number x is greater than -8. So we know that means x is greater than -8. Then we have that word and. Okay, then it just says less than or equal to 4. So they are still talking about the number they gave us, x. So less than or equal to 4. So we also have x is less than or equal to 4. So everyone hopefully can get to this line. X is less than -8 and x is less than or equal to 4. Putting them together is where everyone seems to struggle. So when we put them together, you're going to have your variable in the middle, okay? And then to the left of your variable will always be the smaller number. To the right will be the larger number. So I'm going to have -8 over here and 4 over here. Now we just have to figure out the signs that go between them. This one's easy because it's in the same direction. X is less than or equal to -4. Now this one, it's backwards. It says x is greater than -8, but over here I have -8 on this side. So you still have to make it true. X is bigger than -8. So -8 is less than x. This is my compound inequality. The reason it's called compound is we have two inequality signs in it. This is what it will look like when you have that word and in your sentence, okay? One inequality. Now we graph it. So when we have the word and, it's going to be one line between your two numbers, okay? Looking this, and I'm going to go ahead and jump to B. When you have the word or, they will go opposite of each other. So and, they come together, they're combined, or they go opposite directions. So you might come back up here to your notes and add that. And maybe just draw a little line on a graph. Make something up and show that they go towards each other. Or can draw you just another little makeshift graph. They go opposite because it could be one or the other. Okay, that will always be true. So back to A, when we're graphing it, graph them separately if that's easier for you. We have x is greater than -8, so we know that's an open circle in -8, and it's getting bigger, so it would go this way. My other one is x is less than or equal to +4, so it's a closed circle at 4, and it's getting less than. So this basically, these inequalities pretty much just narrow down our graphs. So this means x on the whole thing is bigger than -8, but it can't go past 4. Okay, so it can only be all the numbers in between here. So now let's look at B, an OR problem. It says a number y is at most 0 or at least 2. So we have a number y is at most 0. That means the biggest it could be is 0, but it could also be smaller. So we have y is less than or equal to 0. That word or, you just write or between them. Then it says at least 2. So it's still talking about y. These problems only have one variable, so we have y is at least 2. So we have or equal to 2 because at least that means it could be 2, but it could be more. So y is greater than or equal to 2. So we put or between them, and there's our inequalities. Now we just graph them separately. Y is less than or equal to 0, so a closed circle at 0, and it's getting smaller. Y is greater than or equal to 2, closed circle at 2, and it's getting bigger. So if you notice on this graph, they're going opposite directions because of that word or. That will always happen. Okay, so I want you to attempt 1 and 2 at the bottom. Pause the video and try them. You're going to set up your inequality and graph them. And then you can press play and I'll do them for you. On numbers 1 and 2, we're not having to graph, we're just setting up the inequalities. So if I go back, number 1, a number D is more than 0 and less than 10. So keywords, we have and, so we know it's going to be that compound inequality. A number D is more than, and then over here we have less than, and then with 0 and 10. So a number D is more than 0, and I'll go back and put them together, less than, so we're still talking about D, less than 10. So since it's an and, I have to put it with D in the middle. So you always put the smallest number on the left, biggest number on the right. So D is less than 10. This says D is greater than 0. So to make that true, it would have to go this way, so that D is greater than 0. So 0 is less than D. So this is your inequality for the first one. On number 2, a number A is fewer than -6 or no less than 0, or -3. So this one's an or one, so we'll have 2 separate inequalities. So we have a number A is fewer than, so A is less than -6, or, so we're still talking about A, no less than. So that means it could be this number, but not any smaller, so it could also be bigger. So greater than or equal to -3. So that's our 2 on that one. So now let's look at how to solve inequalities. So first we're just going to look at the and inequalities. Okay, so A and B, if you notice, they're an and inequality because it's just one long inequality with 2 signs in it. Okay, so how we solve these is you're actually going to split them apart, which makes it a little easier. So what you do, whatever is between the inequalities where your variable is at, it's going to go with both of the inequalities that we're about to create. So we basically take and we split it like this. So here's one inequality. -4 is less than x minus 2. Then our other inequality is the same stuff in the middle with the other side. So my other inequality is x minus 2 is less than 3. So again, whatever's in the middle, that's kind of what you use in both. See, here's x minus 2, and then we have it in this one as well. Okay, so we split it apart. It's an and inequality, so we just undid putting it together. Okay, so now we can solve like a normal inequality. So right here, I've got to get rid of this 2 to solve for x. It's being subtracted, so we add it on both sides. -4 plus 2 is -2. So here's one inequality. Then we do the same thing on the other side. Well, not the same thing. It just happened to be that we're adding 2 on both of them. So we add 2. X is less than 5. So here's my 2 inequalities. Okay, and then we graph them. So the solution, since it's an and, you can still make it one compound one. Because and, when we graph, we know it's going to be between the 2 numbers. So that means you should be able to put x between your 2 numbers in an inequality. Okay, and just like I said earlier, always put the smaller number on this side, the bigger one on this side. That's the only way it's going to work because x is between those numbers. So we know x is less than 5 because that's right here. And this one's actually already set up for us nice and neatly too because it already has x on the right side instead of the left. So here's our inequality. Now we graph it. So I know I can go to -2. It's an open circle. I also have an open circle at 5. X is less than 5, so it's going this way. And -2 is smaller than x, which means x will be bigger than -2, which goes that way. So it goes between them, which you should already know, but I would still double check. That helps you make sure your inequality signs are in the right spot. So on B, we have another one. So we take it. I'm going to split. Oh, hold on. They showed you just doing it all as one. Okay, so you can also do it this way. Hold on, let me erase the line I just made. I wasn't sure if they were going to show us this way yet. Okay, so what they've done on this one, if this is easier for you, you are allowed to do this. This is two different ways to solve the same thing. So if you would much rather split it into two inequalities and solve, you go for it. If this way is easier, use it, okay? I don't have a preference. I like them both, so it's whichever is best for you. So on B, here's our compound inequality. So we know to solve for x, we've got to get rid of this 2 and this 1. So just like normal, we would get rid of this 1 first. Well, what you do, since you have two inequality signs, whenever we just have one, like say I hid this side for now. Whenever we just have this, if we were subtracting 1, we would have to do it on both sides. Well, since I have two inequality signs, we have to do it on both sides of that as well. So when we're solving this, you just have to add it, or subtract it in this case, from all three sides instead of just both, because we have two equal signs, inequality signs. So we are going to subtract this 1 from all sides of the inequality sign. So we have it to do it 3 times. -3 minus 1 more is -4. I still have less than -2x. This canceled. 9 minus 1 is 8. So here is now our inequality. -4 is less than -2x is less than or equal to 8. So again, we're solving for x because we're trying to get it by itself between these two signs. So I would have to divide by -2. But don't forget, when you are multiplying or dividing by a negative, you have to flip your inequality signs. So it goes from less than to greater than, and this one goes from less than or equal to greater than or equal to. So this cancels. Sorry about that. So -4 divided by -2 is +2. That bell was on the video. Is greater than now. X is greater than or equal to 8 divided by -2 is -4. So here is our solution. Now, if that was confusing, just go back and do it like A. Split it into two inequalities. Okay, I want you to do what works best for you. So now when we graph this, I have -4, closed circle, and 2, an open circle. X is greater than or equal to -4 and less than 2, so it should be between them. So now we'll go ahead and look at example 3, and then I'll have you do some problems. So now we're still going to be solving compound inequalities, but now the ones that have an or between them. So these to me seem a little easier as far as remembering what to do, because since there's an or between them, they're already two separate inequalities. So you just solve them. That's it, just like we've been doing. So here I have 3y minus 5 is less than -8. So to get y by itself, we're going to add that 5 to both sides. And we get 3y is a less than -8 plus 5 is -3. Then we would divide both sides by 3 to get that y by itself. And we get y is less than -1. So since it's an or, we have or the other one. So we solve it. We add 1 to both sides, and we get 2y is greater than 5 plus 1 is 6. And then we divide both sides by 2 because we're solving for y. And we get y is greater than 6 divided by 2 is 3. So here is our solution. Y is less than -1, or it's greater than 3. So then we just graph those, and they should be going opposite each other. Okay, so the or ones are a little easier as far as remembering what to do, but you solve them both the same. So what I want you to do, I'm going to go ahead and have you try all 4 of these to get some good practice with and or problems. So you're going to do 3, 4, 5, and 6. You're also graphing them on a number line. And then you can press play and I'll go over them for you. Okay, on 3 and 4, those are compound inequalities, so that would be our and ones. So on number 3, we have 5 is less than or equal to m plus 4 is less than 10. So we're going to split it into two inequalities. We have 5 is less than or equal to m plus 4. Then we have m plus 4 is less than 10. And we solve these inequalities. We get 1 is less than or equal to m is less than 6. So when we graph that on a number line, I have 1 and 6, so I at least have to have those numbers. So, did I do that? Oh, yeah, sorry. So I have a filled in circle at 1. If you plugged numbers in on either side, that goes this way. M is bigger than 1, so it's going this way. Over here I have M is less than 6, it's open, and it is filled in between them. Okay? Being that it was a compound inequality, if your graph goes outward, you already know you messed up and you need to go back and check it somewhere. Because when it's an and, it will be in between your two numbers. The or is where they go out. Okay, so number 4. Again, this is a compound inequality, so we already know our graph. They're going to go and meet each other. So I'm going to go ahead and split this one up so that we can solve our inequalities. Okay, so on my graph, funny enough, it's between 1 and 6 again, just like the last problem. Okay, so it's open at 1 and open at 6. 1 is less than k, so k has to be bigger than 1. You could also plug 0 and 2 in for k, so if I plugged 0 in, is 1 less than 0? No, so it doesn't go that way. If I plug 2 in, 1 is less than 2. Yes, that's true, so it has to go this way. K is less than 6, so it is smaller than 6, so our line is between them, which we already knew that it should be. Okay, so then on 5 and 6, these are or inequalities, so we already know our graphs will go opposite ways. So on this one, I already have them split apart, now just solve. -5 minus 3 more is -8. -1 plus 8 is 7. So this one, I've got quite a bit to do on this number line. If they start getting really far apart, we may count by 2s or something, but those weren't too terribly far apart. I could still fit them both on there. So this one is a filled-in circle, and C is getting smaller. And then C is greater than 7, open circle, and it's going this way. Now, just double check yourself. It was an or question, so they should be going opposite ways. Okay? Number 6, same thing. It's an or problem, so we already know our graphs go out. So, I'm going to subtract. -7 minus 1 more is -8. Then over here on this one, don't forget when you divide or multiply by a negative, your inequality sign flips around. So when we graph this one, and if you forgot when you went to graph, it should have thrown you off and you realized you did something. So I have -4. And we know that 1/2 is exactly halfway between 0 and 1. And now P is getting bigger, so it goes this way. And P is less than -4, so an open circle, and it goes that way at -4.